Hello, welcome. Martial Energetics or Tai Chi's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Dane's awesome trip to Nepal, where he did some amazing stuff. I've mentioned on Instagram and probably on Facebook before, and I know he's mentioned. We've probably talked about it at least once or twice, but we're going to go deep and really talk about the whole experience. So, Dane, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk about this time that I spent in Nepal with our audience, because it relates really closely to the mission and the vision of Tai Chi, and it was just a really great learning experience for me, and I got a lot of great insights that I'm really eager to share.
Okay, cool. So, why did you go to Nepal? What was the whole reason behind it?
Well, it was an example of how the universe works in mysterious ways. It was it started out with an invitation, actually, from someone else. It wasn't originally my idea, but in the process of networking for World Tai Chi Day in 2017, I made a lot of new connections, and one of them was someone who had started an organization to teach martial arts to at-risk youth to combat slavery and human trafficking. And
Oh, just that?
yeah, well, when, like I said, it wasn't my idea originally, but when I heard of it, I was like, oh my God, of course, that's an awesome idea. Why didn't I think of that? And so I was invited to go to Nepal with this organization, and work and teach with them. And I worked with that organization for a number of weeks, and I ended up working with a number of different nonprofit organizations, schools, children's homes, and also just in outside of that, just kind of in my free time, I would play with the kids outside in the parks, who just wanted to come play. So I had a really wide, diverse variety of experiences, and I I went there without a particular agenda. I wasn't sure how long I would be there, and I ended up staying there 8 months, which was the how long my tourist visa lasted. I stayed for as long as my tourist visa would last, and it essentially evolved into an extension of Tai Chi's nonprofit mission for teaching essential life skills, and to those who need them the most. And there's a number of interesting things about Nepal that made it an ideal place for this, and the reason that this work was started there, because it's a place where there's a lot of systemic endemic poverty, and which was exacerbated by an earthquake several years ago, that really has not, a lot of progress has not been made. Things are very slow to change. The government is very inefficient, so it will start construction projects and not finish them. So there will be piles of gravel and construction materials sitting in the road for months.
And then it gets stolen and sold, and then it's gone.
And so things are very slow to change. There's a deep entrenched poverty, as well as a deeply entrenched patriarchy and classism mindset. It's Nepal is unique in being in between India and China, or in between India and Tibet, technically. And it borrows elements from both, culturally and otherwise. And it up until 20 years ago, it followed the caste system, and that's basically the same as the one in India. So things are slow to change for many reasons, and this is a place also that has historically been a hotbed for child abduction, human trafficking, sex slavery, organ harvesting, and all these sorts of things. Children abducted from Nepal end up in countries all over the world as sex slaves and child prostitution workers. And this is for various reasons. This is sort of Nepal is kind of a confluence of those forces. So that was that's kind of the reason that I chose to undertake this amazing adventure, and why it was Nepal.
Wow, man. Well, I mentioned that whole experience to my Tai Chi teacher, and he just dropped his mouth, and it was just, oh, that's why he was teaching martial arts in Nepal. That's horrible. Okay. He was just kind of speechless for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, you must have had tons of experiences. So you worked with a bunch of different organizations. I know you did a World Tai Chi Day in Nepal with a local organization. Why don't you tell me about that?
Oh yeah, that was great actually, because that was where I was during World Tai Chi Day 2018. So I I reached out to all the Chinese martial arts organizations that I could find. There really are. There's very little Tai Chi in Nepal. And there's no major official Tai Chi organizations. I doubt there's any Tai Chi schools. There are a number of martial arts organizations that mostly focus around sporting and display type martial arts, wushu, taekwondo, some things like boxing, Muay Thai, and things of that nature. They But there's very little awareness of Tai Chi and Qigong and internal martial arts, and there are a number of Chinese martial arts organizations, and one that I contacted and made friends with, and participated and assisted with the World Tai Chi Day celebration that it turns out they have there every year. It's the World United Martial Arts Association Nepal branch, and when I was looking into the possibility of hosting or collaborating in a World Tai Chi Day event there, and I came across them, and it turns out they've actually been hosting events there for, I think, 8 years. Every 8 years, they've hosted a World Tai Chi Day event, and so I made friends and got in with them, and I was a special guest of honor at the event, and I got to make a speech, and I had to sit down and sign 500 participation certificates along with all the other guests of honor. One of which, who was actually sitting right next to me, was the Nepali Minister of Defense. Was like the main special guest of honor at that event, and I sat next to him on the couch and shook his hand. So that was definitely a highlight. And they were really incredible people, really great organization. And they're doing incredible traditional Chinese martial arts. So getting involved with them and the other organizations, different children's homes, different schools that I worked with, was really great. And then also for me, there was the work that I was doing there, but then there was also everything else that goes along with living somewhere, which is such as living with Nepali families. I stayed with a couple of families from Airbnb that were amazing experiences. One of them was at a place called Nepali Natural Home. You can actually look it up on Facebook and on the web. It's like a traditional Nepali village with huts and solar power, like in the middle of Kathmandu. It's really gorgeous. Wow. And I also stayed with a the parents of a woman my age. She lived right around the corner with her husband and son, and she was renting her parents' space on Airbnb, and it was great. They would fix breakfast every morning and lunch every day, and dinner in the evening. Just traditional home cooked Nepali meals. I mean, it was just incredible being there long enough to feel like, like I've lived there for a time, and getting integrated in local culture somewhat, and all the experiences that go along with life in a third world country. And what I think Nepal is one of many places that is a huge tourist attraction and has a very strong tourist industry. It's also a third world country, developing economy. It's extremely poor, as they say, by Western affluent standards. But I think that's part of the reason that people find it so fascinating to go there, is because it's so different from our experience, especially in Southern California, right, where everything is nice and new and bright and shiny and works
Yeah.
as far as the eye can see.
We're one of
And
the
that's
richest
just
states in the.
normal and what you expect. And going to a place where everything is old and rusty and dirty and broken down and worn out as far as the eye can see, it's a real perspective expanding experience. And uh, there's just so many enriching aspects of experiencing a part of the world that's so different from where I grew up and so different from where I've lived, that is just I think it's priceless.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely priceless. Was the food spicy?
Typically Nepali food is not extremely spicy. It's very similar to Indian food, but less varied and more plain. I don't think that's one of the things that most people would rave about their tourist experience in Nepal, is the food. I mean, compared to like the street food in Bangkok, where it's just like every 3 steps there's something that looks even better than the last thing,
Oh, yeah.
um, and it's all different and it's just all kinds of stuff. There's about like 4 or 5 things that are sold in street vendors in carts all over the place, and that's it. And they're all pretty bland, like roasted peanuts or uh, corn on the cob, flame roasted corn on the cob, which is not bad. You know, it's nice, but it's like that's all there is, pretty much. And a few other things, momo, and one thing that I did love that I don't, well, I know it can be found in India as well, but I think I found the best pani puri in the world at this one particular shop in Basundara in Kathmandu, where I went every day for months. Pani puri is sometimes can be spicy. It's sour, and it's great and it's delicious. And I'd still eat it every day if I could.
All right, cool. All right, so you said life in a third world country. So what's that mean? Like, I know you mentioned a few times the parks aren't really parks. The open common spaces aren't really developed very much. So where did you said you taught kids in a park too. So tell me about those kind of areas.
Yeah, well, it's kind of what I was referring to about like just the way that there's deep entrenched widespread poverty, and that's what people are used to. And for example, um one of the things that goes along with that is very, very, very heavy use of alcohol and tobacco,
Mm.
um, and extremely heavy. And one thing that also goes along with that, with it, and with that as well, is lots and lots of littering, because there's piles of rubble. There's half collapsed buildings still standing around everywhere from the earthquake. There's piles of rubber. There's half constructed buildings started and never finished. Many of the streets are dirt or gravel, and they're either dusty or muddy, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's trash everywhere, and people just being used to that, being immersed in it. That's normal, and it doesn't make much difference if the ground is already covered with trash and you throw down one more piece of trash. It doesn't, it's not noticeable. So
Yeah.
so in and it's not to say that there are not nicer places, which of course there always are, because there's always a a stratification of wealth on any scale, in any locality, in any nation, in any city, in any neighborhood. And there are people. There's a range of individuals and personalities, and some people take better care of themselves and their environment than others. Um, but as an overall whole, my impression from the time that I spent mostly in Kathmandu and seeing quite a bit of the city is that there is a lot of poverty, like many places, like Bangkok, for example. but there's not nearly as much wealth, concentrated wealth, as there is in those places like Bangkok, for example, where there's highly concentrated districts and locations of wealth. There's not nearly as much actual wealth in the city or in the country, and other than the main metropolitan district of Kathmandu, the entire rest of the country is urban villages and it's rural villages and countryside. So rural farming villages and countryside. That's the rest of it. So there's the what also goes along with that is the perception or the lack of a perception of the possibility for improving one's lot in life, oneself, improving their circumstances, improving things around them, and an extreme reliance on conformity and tradition. And this is one of the reasons that teaching martial arts in particular, but really any skill in general, to kids, to youth, is one of the most powerful modes for transformation of society, because learning in an environment where there's not a lot to aspire to and not a lot to get good at least not a lot of positive things. I mean, there is also lots of crime. I mean, that almost goes without saying in this type of environment. There's certainly very friendly people in Nepal, and it's a country very welcoming to tourists. And what goes along with that is petty theft and scams of all kinds. And in an environment like that, where there's not a lot to inspire to other than go to school where you wear a uniform and compete to be as good as all the other kids, to compete to stand in, basically. To give them a skill that is unique and fun and valuable, and allow them to have the experience of getting good at something. It develops the quality of self-efficacy and the belief in their ability to learn and to grow, and that belief is one of the fundamental things that my overall impression was is just lacking. People do not have a lot of ambition. There's not a lot to aspire to. So having the experience of developing a skill is a repeatable experience and bleeds into and applies across all realms of life.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, martial arts is very freeing in many ways, because once you have a really good feel for self-defense, you're not afraid of just walking down any street anytime. It's like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, and there's also that aspect to it too. I mean, you could learn self-efficacy from any skill. You could learn it from underwater basket weaving or tap dancing, but martial arts in particular has unique qualities in terms of developing a sense of confidence and security that's particularly powerful for kids who grow up feeling vulnerable or powerless.
Okay. So the value of self-efficacy. So martial arts teaches that. And what do you think that means to someone who has no perspective, nothing, there's nothing coming up in their life? They're just like, well, I'm going to work at the local factory or do something
in the family shop.
Yeah, that's all
is what it would be in Nepal. But yeah, in the little family corner store or whatever. It's what I was just saying, that having the experience of, oh, hey, I can get good at something by applying myself. Hey, there's this, and having the experience of, oh, this is hard at first, and then with practice it becomes easy. And that can apply to, oh, this other thing that seems hard, maybe if I practice at that can become easy too. And hey, if I got good at this, maybe I can get good at this other thing too. And as well as the experience of, hey, I'm good at something unique, that maybe I'm not the only one, but it is unique and valuable, and most other people do not have this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So the thing that I find about martial arts is once you've learned how to practice, as long as you keep practicing, you always get better. You don't really need a teacher necessarily, but there is
Mhm.
definitely a, you get too much in your own head and think you're doing everything right. And then you finally go to a competition or you face somebody and then you just get taken down a notch because you didn't practice well enough or you didn't have anyone checking you. So that's always a tough one. So how would you advise someone living off in the middle of nowhere who's training maybe online or training with through a book? How would they teach themselves martial arts?
Well, it it seems a little off topic, but it kind of does relate to my experiences a little bit, which in a certain way. And I guess really I have to say that's a tough situation. You have to learn from people better than you,
Yeah, yeah.
especially when you're starting out. There is and I teach all students towards a point of self-sufficiency, which I define as a point where the student no longer a teacher is always valuable, and you can always learn from others, especially others who are more skillful than you in some way. But the point of self-sufficiency means that you are not reliant upon a particular teacher
Mm.
in order to progress on your path. That means that it doesn't mean that you go live in a mountain cave and train by yourself for 40 years necessarily, although it could show up that way, I guess. But it could just as well show up as you choosing to learn from multiple teachers to train at different schools simultaneously, or maybe different schools at different times, and learn different things and assimilate different skill sets within yourself, and to seek out new teachers and new learning experiences as your development progresses. And when having that basis of self-sufficiency, then you can benefit a lot from books and videos and online courses and all these kinds of recorded knowledge. If you don't have that basis of self-sufficiency, you can benefit from such things a little bit, but not very much, and you can also be easily be led astray. So in that situation, the best thing a person can do is connect and train with other people, even if that's only in the form of a peer group. And with some of the kids that I was working with in the park, just playing in the park in Nepal, which is another thing about that environment. Like what would pass for a park most places, you might think uh, clean, clipped grass and trimmed heads and everything. No, this is basically a field filled with dirt and trash and broken glass, broken beer bottles and cigarette butts and everything else. And not to mention dog feces and cow feces, two species that roam freely. So this is basically like this is the area that these kids had to play in, and that was what we did. We just sweep aside all the debris and just get like right down there and play and roll around and I get down there and play and roll around the dirt with them. Because that's
Japanese schools. When you go to a Japanese martial arts school, like, okay, everyone, first thing you do, clean the mats, get everything ready for the class, and then, okay, bring everyone on for
yeah
the beginner's class. And at the end of the day, all right, everyone, clean the mats.
yeah
Clean up here
and
and make sure it's clean for tomorrow.
and it's almost a ritual, yeah. And I would just go to the park to work out, and kids would come train with me, and there were a few of them that were serious about training, and they wanted to train, but they had school. And I said, okay, I'll come train you when you want to train. They said 5 a.m. and I said, okay, I'll be here at 5 a.m. if you will.
Nice.
And they showed up, and I showed up, and they learned a significant amount of stuff. And I knew that, and they knew, like, when I left, that they weren't going to have access to me or anything like what I was teaching them. And to be honest, it kind of broke my heart a little bit that I couldn't stay, and give them more attention. But the ones of them who are most advanced, I essentially told them that if you what I have been doing this whole time is teaching you how to learn and how to teach, so that you can teach how to learn and teach how to teach. As long as you continue to train this way, continue to experiment and play and teach, then you'll continue to advance. And that's uh, that's the best advice I can give for that kind of situation is connect with people. You need to connect with people to be healthy in life. A, you need to connect with people to advance in personal growth. B, you need to connect with people to learn new skills. C, you need to connect with people. So if connecting with people is an issue for you, I'd say martial arts is something that can benefit you primarily as a way to motivate you to connect with people.
Yeah. It's definitely gotten me out of the computer nerd shell that I was in for a long time.
Yeah. That's great, and especially for that's actually a big issue. A lot of people have jobs that keep them sitting, and they have very sedentary lives. And it doesn't have to be that way. If you have that kind of job, you're not constrained to that type of existence. And this is something I admire about you, about being a great example of someone who develops himself in all dimensions. Yeah, you have or had a like a cubicle type desk job, and you also get out and pursue athletic and entrepreneurial and intellectual interests apart from that. So I congratulate and appreciate you for setting that example of developing yourself in all dimensions, whatever your circumstances are, and not letting any kind of mold shape the way you're going to live your life.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So one thing that we need to add is you can keep teaching these kids without being in Nepal as long as they have the internet, because of a mind-body mastery online community that you've been building. What is that? Tell us about that community real quick.
Yeah, and that was also one of the huge takeaways that I got from the whole experience. Apart from just immense gratitude for just the entire experience, the entire opportunity, everyone who was involved, everyone that I met. I just came away feeling extremely and cherished this day, and an immense feeling of gratitude for those opportunities. And this was also, and also what came out of this was the inspiration to focus on training teachers, and to develop an online learning community, because of exactly those reasons you mentioned. The training teachers is really the only way to have an impact, or the only way to have a significant, meaningful impact.
Yeah, I agree.
And so my experiences with those kids, and realizing that I could only be there for so much time, just really highlighted for me the value of teaching others to teach, and that being an integral part of the learning process, and training certified teachers who can share and spread this work. So that was a big part of the inspiration I got, and the online learning community is a part of that. What you said about the kids in Nepal being able to learn if they had the internet, well, that's actually, most people do have smartphones over there, but that's all they have. and so it's even in that regard. I mean, there's huge changes coming in the next couple of years that are going to bring the entire world online through satellites and balloons and drones and everything else. And when that happens, at that point, everybody's going to have a device too. Because what good is it to have people online if they don't have a device? So basically, devices are going to become free. But until then, there's limited. There are limitations, and so the importance of training teachers who can go into places where the internet cannot yet reach, and do this immensely rewarding and satisfying work, and I'll be honest, challenging. I mean, I don't want to neglect that aspect. It was trying in many ways for me. There were things that I went through that really pushed my personal growth edges, which is all part of what I'm grateful for. But immensely rewarding and satisfying, and so training teachers is just something I'm incredibly passionate about, and for those of us who do have access to the internet, the online mind body mastery online learning community, which we're currently hosting on Patreon, and you can find it there. You can find it on our website, Chai Tea Tai Chi. There's links through Facebook and YouTube. So if you haven't heard of that yet, it's easy to find. And what we have there, right? What we have there, we'll put it in the comments. What we have there is so far 12 hours plus and growing of instructional video footage designed to help anyone develop and anchor in a comprehensive energetic hygiene practice. Whether you're a martial artist or not a martial artist, or experienced or not, these are tools that anyone can use to bring into their life to optimize their experience of life in all dimensions. And so there's options there for just getting access to that curriculum. There's also options there for coaching, for individual support for your mind-body mastery journey, and even for learning to teach mind-body mastery. So that much of the video footage that's on there now, I actually recorded while I was in Nepal. That's something that I had a great opportunity to work on, and there's more great stuff to come. It's just onwards and upwards from here, and I'm just bursting with excitement to witness what is coming next for all of us in this lifelong mind-body mastery journey.
All right. Well, that's about all we got for today. So thanks very much for joining me today, Dane.
Yeah, it's great talking about this topic. I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to catching you again soon.
All right. Live long and prosper, everybody.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.